What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and we are back with the first locks and traps of 2026. If you guys are new here, this is a segment that I do for every single UFC event where I rank all of my picks from my most confident picks at the very top with the locks, all the way down to my very least confident picks at the very bottom with the traps. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, first up, we got Alex Perez versus Charles Johnson. I like Charles Johnson in this spot quite a bit. I do think he's the better fighter. He's a bit more well-rounded, and I think he has a much better momentum going for him in this spot. You look at Alex Perez, yes, he's actually the younger fighter in the spot, but he's been dealing with a lot of adversity. In his recent fights, you can see he's 1-4 in his last 5. Yes, he's going against very high-level guys, and he's losing against guys that are very respectable losses. It's just he has these holes in his game, especially with his submission defense, that have been a real problem for him, all throughout the years, and especially with him, too. Like I talked about in my full card breakdown. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. I talked about he's not as checked in as a guy like Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson has the momentum going for him. He knocked out Josh Van. We saw what he did to Loner Kavanaugh. We know he can go on a title run. It's a possibility. Maybe he can get that rematch with Josh Van. It's now or never. At 35 years old, he has to go for it now, and I really do think he is as locked in as physically can be. And in terms of their raw stats, I like Charles Johnson in the spot too because he's just much more durable. We've seen Alex Perez submitted multiple times. We've seen him finish multiple times. He's dealt with injuries like he had against Tatsuro Taira where he blew his knee out, whereas Charles Johnson, very healthy, very fresh, has the momentum going for him on a nice little win streak, and I think he's just the better overall around fighter. He's going to have that lengthy frame of his to be able to strike from distance. He's going to be the better grappler. I don't worry about his grappling in the spot at all, so got to go with Charles Johnson and a medium confidence pick because I do respect the skill set of Alex Perez. He's 1-4 in his last 5, but like I said, there's a little asterisk behind those losses. Even in his most recent loss against Asu Amabayev, he was arguably winning that fight until he got caught. So it could be a lot closer than the lines might suggest, but I do like Charles Johnson to get his hand raised in this one. But next up, we got Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. Now, this is an interesting one. I have Sean O'Malley as the pick, as a low confidence pick, just because I think this fight could go a number of different ways. Now, we know Sean O'Malley is going to be the better striker on the feet, more accurate. He's going to have that reach advantage, the height advantage. He's going to be able to pick his shots from range. He will definitely be the much better distance striker. But we've seen from Song Yadong, when he's in fights where he's at a striking disadvantage, he is not afraid to go for the grappling. We saw what he did against Petr Yan. Yes, he didn't have a ton of success in terms of the takedowns. He attempted 8 in that fight. He wasn't obviously able to get that many, but there were moments where he had a lot of success, and I do think Petr Yan does have better takedown defense than Sean O'Malley. We saw it just in his last fight against Merab, and we saw that in comparison to how Sean O'Malley was able to handle the takedown threat of Merab, and we saw that across 2 fights. So the difference is there between their 2 takedown defenses that I think Song Yadong could be able to exploit in this fight. And we know that Song Yadong, he's being trained by Uriah Faber. He has nice guys in his corner. Not nice, but like skill-wise nice. He has very talented guys in his corner. He's a coachable kid. I have to imagine he's sticking to a smart game plan in this fight, and he knows he's going to be at a disadvantage on the feet in the striking. The easiest path to victory for him would be to initiate the grappling, make it nasty, make it up close, do not strike from distance. So if he comes into this with a very high grappling type of a game plan, if he's shooting a ton of takedowns, I think he could have a lot of success, and I really think he can push that pace for 15 minutes. His cardio is not at the level of Merab, but he has that physical strength. He's going to have that real advantage in terms of the raw physicality in the spot that I think could be a major problem for Sean O'Malley. And the same thing, kind of like in his fight against Petr Yan, he wasn't able to land a ton of takedowns, but he can still rack up control time. So this fight I likely see it going all 3 rounds, and it's going to matter how the judges see it. Will they weigh Sean striking, or will they weigh Song Yadong's grappling and control time? It'll be interesting to see how they weigh, because I think this fight will be relatively close. So Sean O'Malley is the pick for now, but it's a low confidence pick, just because even with the mentality, Sean O'Malley had the whole switch up from his last game or his last fight. We'll have to see how he comes into this fight week, if he's going back to this grassroots of where he was, or if he's switching up things again. There's some interesting mental factors that we have to consider with Sean O'Malley, because he's even talked about retiring this year. So there are definitely some red flags in terms of the mentality side of Sean O'Malley, but either way, I think this is going to be a close fight. Have Sean O'Malley as a low confidence pick. But next up, we got Umar versus Figgy. I just couldn't put it in my heart to make Umar as a lock in this spot, just because I do think that Figgy has that puncher's chance in this spot. I think people are completely writing him off, but he has one of the, if not the highest amount of knockdowns in flyweight history. I mean, he has an insane knockdown ratio. And we've seen Umar's chin tested and cracked before. So do I think Figgy wins this fight? Realistically not. I think it's probably a KO or bust, and it probably won't happen. But we've seen guys, even like Mario Bautista, who doesn't have this crazy power, was able to hurt Umar pretty badly. So I think it's going to come down to Umar's going to be the better fighter. He's in his physical prime. He should be able to win this fight anywhere it goes. It's just a matter of maybe Figgy could get that lucky Hail Mary knockout shot. probably won't happen, but it's just for the huge blowout line that Umar's at right now. It's not something I'm dying to get behind, but definitely Umar's got to be a confident pick this week. But next up, we got Johnson versus Hernandez. Now, I like Alexander Hernandez in terms of his raw physicality. He's a very physically imposing guy. He's going to be quick on the feet. And with Michael Johnson getting older at this point in his career, the speed is going to definitely start to slow down and slow down and slow down. And same with his durability. We've seen him put out cold within recent years. So I do have some concerns in the side of Michael Johnson's durability. With Hernandez, it's more so when we've seen him finished, it's more that he's kind of been broken down. He started to slow down, kind of been an accumulation of damage as opposed to getting just starched and knocked out cold like we've seen with Michael Johnson when he fought someone like a Diego Ferreira.
There you go.
About like a stiff forward there. So I do have concerns for both guys. In terms of the raw technical skill, if this was a couple years ago, I'd pick Michael Johnson. It's just he's almost damn near 40 years old. Hernandez really is in his prime right now. I think this is going to be a close fight. I wouldn't be surprised if either guy won. That's why it's a low confidence pick, but I'm leaning Hernandez ever so slightly just because of the momentum. He's in his physical prime right now, and he seemed to be the best point in terms of his entire career, whereas Michael Johnson is kind of at the tail end. So Hernandez, low confidence pick. Next up, we got Cortes-Acosta versus Derrick Lewis. Now, I like Waldo Cortes-Acosta in this spot. We know he has a very good chin, and you need that against a guy like Derrick Lewis. And in this spot, it almost feels kind of like the Umar fight. I feel like Derrick Lewis, his best chance to win this would be a knockout. If not, I just don't see him winning a technical striking match against Waldo Cortes-Acosta. He doesn't have the grappling to really kind of trick Waldo Cortes-Acosta in this spot. It's going to be a striking match for 15 minutes, and we've only really seen Waldo lose a striking match against Pavlovich. Pavlovich has one of the longest reaches that we've ever seen. He hits like an absolute truck as well. He's faster than Derrick Lewis. He's a lot younger as well, too, so he has a lot more going for him, and I think that was a much more difficult fight for Waldo than a guy like Derrick Lewis, who, 40 years old, he's definitely getting towards the end of the run, although they are at heavyweight. So I think Waldo Cortes, he's just going to be faster. He's going to have more volume. He's just going to win a technical striking match across 15 minutes. Derrick Lewis might have some big moments, throughout the fight, throughout the 15 minutes, but I see Waldo just being able to kind of slowly start to win and take over the fight the longer that it goes. He might knock out Derrick Lewis. Who knows? Either guy could get knocked out. I have it as a high confidence pick, but I can't say I'd be mind blown if Cortes-Acosta got clipped. But I will say, we've seen his chin be able to hold up against guys who are large power punchers like a Pavlovich. Waldo Cortes-Acosta, he's proven at this point in his career, he's a solid fighter. I was doubtful of him at first when he came into the UFC, but I will say he's impressed me a lot, and I think he should be able to get the win in the spot, and I'd be pretty surprised if he lost. But next up, we got Gaethje versus Pimblett.
One man can hold you down, two can. And I will be damned if one man can hold me down.
Now, I got Justin Gaethje as the pick. I went over this one in a lot more detail in my full card breakdown. If you want to watch that breakdown, go check it out. It's my last video. I just worry because with Paddy Pimblett, he has not proven his skill set at this high of a level yet. This fight almost reminds me of Usman versus Buckley, where everyone was like, nah, dude, Usman is he's washed, man. There's nothing left. Buckley's going to run right through Usman. We saw how that one went, and I feel like this could be a similar situation, just because we know Paddy Pimblett does not have great striking. We've seen geriatric Tony Ferguson landing bombs on him. We saw Michael Chandler clipping him. We saw Jared Gordon clipping him as well. So it's like he's getting hurt, not hurt in the sense of like he's getting rocked and his chin's getting cracked, but he's getting rocked against guys at a much lower level caliber of a guy like Justin Gaethje, who's really been there and he's fought the who's of the division for the last multiple years. So I worry about Paddy Pimblett. If he is not able to get this to the ground, I don't really trust his wrestling to be able to take it to the ground. He's not going to chain wrestle on the spot. He's even said in interviews, I want to keep it on the feet. I want to strike against Justin Gaethje, and that just seems like a terrible idea. Justin Gaethje is going to work those leg kicks, and the longer those start to accumulate and work up, the worse and worse Paddy's takedown entrances are going to become. So I do worry the longer this fight goes on, I do think Justin Gaethje will start to ramp up. We've seen cardio issues with Paddy Pimblett in the past, but it's kind of weird, like I talked about, when he fought Tony Ferguson, he had a lot of major issues with that cardio. By the end of that fight, he was completely death gassed, but we saw against Michael Chandler, halfway through that third round, he's landing a ton of ground and pound shots. He seemed fine. He seemed like his cardio was in great shape, so I assume his cardio will be able to hold up in this spot. It's just Justin Gaethje has that crafty vet status, on the feet, as long as his as long as his durability is in check, and as long as his chin is not shot, because like we've seen from Holloway Holloway and Oliveira who put him down. As long as it's not like that, I do think he should have a major advantage on the feet. It really just comes down to if Paddy can take it to the ground. If Paddy takes it to the ground, he probably can't submit Justin Gaethje. I would not be surprised at all. Justin Gaethje's talked about retiring, so you have to imagine if he loses this fight, he's out of this. So I don't know how committed he is at this point in his career, but this feels like his last little run going for him, so you have to assume that his heart is all the way in. But as a summary, I do have this as a low confidence pick because I could see either guy winning. I might pick flip the Paddy Pimblett. Maybe I'll have to see the longer this week goes on. I do want to see the face-off between these two because, like a lot of you guys have been talking about in the comments, Paddy Pimblett probably will be a much larger guy than Justin Gaethje, so I would kind of want to see how that size comparison goes. But for now, I'll have Justin Gaethje as the pick, but we might pick flip on this one. But next up, we got Krylov versus Bukauskas. I have this one as a trap. We cannot trust Krylov. Nikita Krylov has proven time and time again that he will not stick to a smart game plan. Originally, I was thinking about picking Bukauskas in my full card breakdown, but I'm like, you know what, screw it. We're just going to stick with the same logic twice, because in the last fight that he had against Bukauskas, I was like, you know what, if he's going against this guy, like, why would he try and stand and strike against Bukauskas? He has a grappling advantage. We saw what Billy Elikana did to Bukauskas. Nikita Krylov can definitely do that. He was able to do that against Volkan Ozdemir. He can do that against a guy like Bukauskas. So after that fight, I was like, oh my goodness, why is he not sticking to the smart game plan? But who knows? Maybe he sticks to a smart game plan because he has almost a similar advantage in the grappling against Bukauskas like he did against Guskov. It's kind of a similar matchup. Maybe Modestas Bukauskas has a bit better grappling, but it's relative. It's relatively the same. He definitely has the advantage. So in terms of this being a 50-50 fight, I know the odds are tightening. I'm going to go with Krylov, I guess, just because of we can use that logic. Like, if he sticks to a smart game plan, he can actually win this fight. And I'd much rather pick him and have him not stick to a smart game plan than pick against him and then he sticks to a smart game plan, and that would piss me off even more, if that makes sense. So hopefully Krylov will stick to a smart game plan, actually try to implement the grappling and not just stand and strike for 15 minutes and have his chin exposed for the third time in a row. So for that reason, we'll pick Krylov, but it is an absolute trap. This comes down to if someone's going to stick to a smart game plan or not when they've proven in their last two fights that they will not do it. So we'll have to see how this one goes. But next up, we got Turcios versus Smotherman. Low confidence pick. I don't really have a ton of input on this one. I don't think either of these guys are necessarily world beaters. It's a bit of a lower level fight. Either guy could win. I'm leaning Smotherman ever so slightly. I do think he has slightly the higher skill cap in terms of his overall potential. It's just a matter of where he's going to actually develop, because at only 28 years old, he's still young. He's going to be improving more rapidly from fight to fight than a guy like Turcios. So Smotherman will be the pick. Low confidence pick though. Can't really say I'm super leaning either one way or the other. So Cameron Smotherman as the pick. And if you like the content, help your boy out with the algorithm. Drop a like, drop a comment, it goes a long way, and subscribe if you're new. We drop new videos every single week, so thank you guys for all the love on the videos. Now, next up, we got Silva versus Namajunas. Now, this one I've gone back and forth on, because on one hand, Natalia Silva, at this point in her career, she's so young, and she's been so dominant in the UFC. I mean, we saw what she just did against Alexa Grasso, a former champion. She made her look like she didn't even belong there. It just goes to show how damn good Natalia Silva is. Now, the only thing that worries me about her in this spot is the potential grappling that Rose might have coming her way. Now, we saw with Rose in her last fight against Brandon Maverick, she had a lot of success in the grappling, which surprised a lot of people, including myself, because I thought if anyone was going to be going for the takedowns, it would have been Brandon Maverick, but nope, Rose was landing takedowns. She was landing control time. She rocked her too. I mean, Rose looked great in that fight, so it makes me think, Natalia Silva, we saw when she fought Viviane Araújo, she did have some struggle at times with the grappling. It was a bit of a concern for her. Now, the older she's getting and the more experience she's getting, she should be able to patch that hole in her game a bit more and a bit more and a bit more, but it's just a concern in the back of my mind that I have had, and it's just the line is so damn wide too. It's kind of disrespectful to Rose considering all that she's done, but the last thing you got to consider is the weight classes. Rose has been coming up to a new weight class where Natalia Silva is a big hefty girl, not like that or anything, but she's a big body girl. Like, she's strong, she's built, she should have that strength and size going for her in this spot, and I think will be a bit more natural for her in terms of her spot in this weight class, where we know with Rose, she's been stepping up to a new weight class, so that could play a factor in how much success Rose is going to have. Her not being at this natural weight class, it could affect her ability to have grappling success and how much control time she can rack up throughout this fight. But even then, let's say it's a back and forth striking match for 15 minutes, I do think it'll still be relatively competitive. I just think Natalia Silva will definitely have that slight edge on the feet. I like what she's able to do. She has that little twisty style. It's a bit crazy, it's a bit unpredictable, and I think her kicks will be a major advantage for her in the spot as well too. So I like Natalia Silva. She should be able to get her hand raised, because I do think she's a special talent, and she'll probably be she'll be a UFC champion here soon within the next couple years for sure. So next up, we got Gautier versus Pulyaev. You guys knew this one was coming. Ateba Gautier, absolute specimen of a man. I mean, he's an absolute demon. Ngannou 2.0. I mean, it's going to be crazy to see how this man develops. I'm a big fan of his. I will say I'm very excited. And in the full card breakdown we talked about too, with Pulyaev, there have been some holes in his game that we've seen kind of exposed, especially on the regional scene. I had clips, we went over that in the full card breakdown, where we just haven't really seen those glimpses of greatness from Pulyaev. I think he's a pretty one-dimensional kickboxer. There's not a whole lot more to his game. He hasn't proven a whole lot as he's been in the UFC through his short career. And I just don't really see his skill cap being all that high. This seems like a setup match for Gautier, and it's going to kind of be exactly the type of fight that he wants. He's not wanting to deal with grapplers. We know Gautier has a striking base. He's not an experienced BJJ grappler. We know that for a fact. So who is the UFC giving him? Andrey Pulyaev, an absolute kickboxer who has no grappling upside whatsoever. So I think this is a kind of a silver platter matchup for Gautier. He should be able to get a knockout round 1, round 2. I would be surprised if this went the distance. It's a matter of time before Gautier is going to touch his chin and put him out cold. So that does it for this one. But next up, we got Hokit versus Freeman. Josh Hokit. Now, he's been a bit of a polarizing figure. Some people love him. Some people hate him. I have him as a low confidence pick this week just because I think he's going to be the more athletic guy. And with heavyweights like this, low level heavyweight fight, it's really going to come down to the little details. You know, it's not like some technical masterclass from these two. And in terms of the raw skill, I think both guys are relatively similar. This is not a fight that I'm dying to put any action on, because I will not be surprised if either guy wins. If Freeman were to win this fight, I would not be surprised at all, because we just don't really know too much about the striking of Josh Hokit. We know he has that wrestling base, but beyond that, we haven't seen his striking tested all that much. Whereas at least with Denzel Freeman, we've seen that striking tested a bit more, like we've seen him in the PFL against guys who were actually decent, and even in the LFA. So we know that Freeman has we've been able to see a bit more of his overall skill set, and we know he has that wrestling background as well. Maybe not at the same level as Josh Hokit, but we know he can hang. Like, he's not some fish out of water in terms of the grappling. So overall, I think this is going to be a very competitive back and forth fight. As long as someone doesn't get starched, knocked out in the first round, I think it will be pretty competitive of a back and forth fight. I just think Josh Hokit has the higher skill cap in terms of his potential throughout his career, and I think I'll give him a slight edge in the spot. So that's why I have him picked this week. But like I said, low confidence pick for a reason. Now, next up, we got Allen versus Silva. Gene Silva, in my opinion, I talked about this in my full card breakdown. I do think he is going to be a future champion. You know, I think he has every skill set all encompassed. I think he's the overall perfect picture of a fighter. I really think he has everything he needs, except maybe that mental sanity. I think that's the one thing he's lacking. It's just the mental sanity to stick to a smart game plan. He would have beat Diego Lopez if he stuck to a smart game plan. He just crashed out, turned it into a bar brawl, and we'd all saw how that happened. So in this fight, I've been following him throughout his training, throughout this entire camp. He has been extremely dialed in. He seems extremely focused. He seems like he's done with the games. This is the most serious and kind of locked in that we've ever seen Gene Silva. And I think against a guy like Arnold Allen, it's going to be a real showcase fight for him to show just how good he is. Because I think Arnold Allen will be able to, not able to, but I think he will engage in some of the brawling at some point of this fight. And I do think if there is any brawl, it's a matter of time before Gene Silva touches the chin of Arnold Allen. I mean, we've seen Arnold Allen cracked by guys with way less power, like Evloev, who's known as a grappler. Evloev was touching the chin of Arnold Allen. I mean, we've seen Holloway put him down towards the end of that fight. I mean, there are times where we've seen the chin really be a problem, not like a major problem, because we know that Allen has never been finished before as a professional, but you do not want to have any chin problems against Gene Silva. I mean, he has hands of steel and he hurts people. We saw what he did to guys like Charles Jourdain who don't get finished. I think this is going to be the exact same situation. I think Gene Silva will finish Arnold Allen, maybe round 2, maybe round 3. I think it's a matter of time. Maybe it goes to a decision, and even if it goes to a decision, I think Gene Silva will be landing the larger, bigger shots over the span of the 15 minutes, and I think he'll be winning the big moments that will sway the judges his way. So I would be surprised if he lost this fight. I could see it if it goes 15 minutes. Obviously, I could see it being a little bit more competitive than the line might suggest, but at the same time, I would be very surprised if Gene Silva were to lose this fight. Now, finally, we got Figueiredo versus Miller. Now, I have this as a trap just because people are really kind of underestimating the grappling of Figueiredo in the spot. Or sorry, I guess I forgot to move myself out of the way earlier, but boom, here we are. Now, people are underestimating the grappling of Figueiredo, and they're kind of not really thinking about that for Ty Miller. Ty Miller is a boxer. That was his background before going to MMA, so we know that's where he's the most skilled. But in terms of the grappling, it's a major concern for him. Like I talked about in my full card breakdown, We have seen holes in Ty Miller's grappling exposed on the regional scene against much lower level of competition. Now he's in the UFC making his debut at 25 years old. I can't really have a lot of confidence in the back of my mind that his grappling is going to be able to hang against a guy like Adam Fugit. We've seen Adam Fugit, very highly experienced BJJ, either brown belt or black belt. Like we talked about in that full card breakdown, he was a brown belt in 2022. So it's safe to assume he definitely could be a black belt in the big 2026. So for a guy like Ty Miller, I don't know what his belt is, but I guarantee you he has nowhere near the experience on the mats against a guy like Adam Fugit. So I worry about that in the spot because we've seen with Fugit, he was able to have grappling success against high-level guys like a Michael Morales. We saw, yes, he's not able to land a ton of takedowns, but he landed a lot of control time, and I trust him to be able to do the same thing against a guy like Ty Miller. Landing takedowns and trying to control a guy like Michael Morales is absolutely insane. I mean, he's huge. He's a mammoth. He's a physical specimen. So for a guy like Adam Fugit to have the success that he did against Michael Morales, why could he not have the same success against a 25-year-old UFC debut who doesn't have anywhere near the same level of experience or skill overall, honestly? So I think Adam Fugit, I'm not going to say he straight up wins this fight. Like I said, I have Ty Miller as the pick, but I do think that this is one of those fights where minus 400 UFC debut at 25 years old, when we know he has a grappling hole in his game, and we know that Adam Fugit can stick to a smart game plan and push the grappling, I worry about this a lot. This seems like it could be a definite parlay buster, so I do worry about this one. This is one I would avoid in terms of if you're putting any action on this. But anyway, guys, that does it. We had the poll. We got to cover this, as always. We got the poll. If you guys are new here, we do a poll every single week that I have in my posts on YouTube that we go over what you guys have for your lock of the week that we got to vote on. So these were the options this week. This was the previous week poll from last year, about a month ago. You guys picked Kevin Vallejos. Absolutely cast there, so congrats to you guys on the last one. But for this week, we had different options. Also, we had some comments, for the guys that maybe didn't like one of the four that we had here. I had a comment, obviously. If you have someone else, drop it in the comments. So we got a couple comments to go over. We had Charles Johnson plus Paddy. We had Modestas Bukauskas. We had O'Malley, Charles Johnson, Gene Silva, Charles Johnson for the odds, but I also think Paddy retires Justin, sadly. I hope not, but he just might do it. Then we had Derrick Lewis by violence in the first round. The Silva double play. I like that too. And we had our boy Tom. What's with the Paddy the Paddy pick? Yeah, sorry, Paddy. I had to do him like that. I apologize. But it gets worse. I mean, we had this on. Oh, God. Oh, no AI either. Sorry, Paddy. But in terms of who you guys voted on, boom, these were the results. You guys ended up going with Ateba plus Umar. Never done that. It was a little 2-in-1 combo we did this week. Kind of switched it up a little bit because they were just so too huge a favorite. So we got a little 2-in-1 combo. They're counting 2 for 1. So in terms of the overall rankings, I already had Gautier as a lock this week, but you guys had Umar in there as well. So we're bumping him up for your guys' lock of the week. We got them both now. This is how we're running for the entire week. So anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for all the love on the video. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all your guys' support. If you like the channel, if you like the videos, make sure to drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you're new. We have videos coming every single week, covering every single UFC event. So there's more on the way, more coming. I got the best bets video coming here shortly. We're going to have the weigh-in recaps as well for everyone who's been here. You guys know the deal. That's how we do it week to week around here. But anyway, guys, thank you guys again for all the love on the video. Thank you guys for all the support. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get this one up to you guys here ASAP, and we'll be back with more videos here soon. So it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'm out. Peace.
You crazy mother.